thankful for having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
So am I doing the opening for fun, or are we actually streaming? Oh, here we go. All right. There you go.
Yeah. It's
there you
delayed
go.
effect, I guess.
Guys, welcome to the broadcast. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. It's so great to be here on another Friday. And I can't believe it's October the 6th, Joseph.
I know. It's like a week has already gone by. It feels like just the other day it was hotter than hell, and we're roasting sausages outside.
A week?
You know, barbecue.
Life.
That's what it feels like.
You know, when I was a kid, a year took so long, man. Christmas break, it took forever.
Oh, God. It was like watching grass grow.
Yeah.
Now, it's like Christmas decorations are going up, after 4th of July. It's crazy.
I would say that it's one of the only things my parents were absolutely correct about was how fast time flies. I didn't understand that when I was a kid.
Yeah, how can you? Yeah.
I mean, my parents were correct about a lot of things, but I mean, my mother was super, sharp. This was a really sharp lady, and obviously my dad, well, you know about my dad, but he was sharp too. It's just that I didn't, the only time I got a chance to really see him is when I was slaving away at the factory when all the other kids were out having fun. And essentially he would just come in and assess my work. And it was either not good enough or it was good enough. And it was good enough. That's all he needed to say. There was no serious praise. And that was fine, actually. I think it geared me up for life, the reality of life.
Yeah. That's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. Discipline.
Well, there was a lot of discipline. And he would say that, he really never said that he was proud of me until I hit my first bag. And that, for young people, they know what that means. You may not know what that means.
Yes.
But that somehow equated my success to him. He did say when I was first published, he did say, I didn't know you could write a book. So that was his... that was his way of showing his love and his pride.
See, what's sad about that is I know exactly what he meant. He meant, I'm proud of you. That's impressive.
Absolutely.
I don't know you can write a book.
But here's the thing. I wasn't the type of kid to be adversely affected by that. I for whatever reason, and again, I think it's God-given, or, maybe my mother helped me with this, or maybe it was just a type of education or just kind of being out of the house and a latchkey kid. I was able to separate myself from that stuff, and I wasn't always trying to get my dad's approval. I had to work. Mm-hmm. If I wasn't at practice or whatever I was doing, I had to work. That was what I had to do. That was my job. I knew that as a child. I wasn't hanging out with my buddies, whatever it is. So, and then when I wasn't working, I was a latchkey kid. So say I was allowed to not have to go to work to go to Hebrew school, on a Tuesday. Well, I was a major Hebrew school truant, which they didn't know about. Mm-hmm. So I took those days off when I didn't have to work, and he thought I was in Hebrew school until the notices started to come in.
Till the notice, I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
And the other shoe drops.
But... look, let me tell you, when my rabbi gave me a live test, essentially, I'm in temple, I have to get up there, he opens up a section of the Torah and he asked me to read it in front of the entire class, and I crushed it. He didn't know what to say because I wasn't in class. But it's not rocket science, You learn how to read Hebrew when you're a little kid.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm going on this tangent. I guess, what did I start to say? I had some point. I was going to button this up somehow.
I have no idea what your point was.
Jesus. I don't know. But I've got a lot of good stories, I can tell you that. But I guess maybe I'm talking about the reality of, of discipline and hard work and what it takes to be successful in life. And, there are those out there who don't fully grasp that. And a lot of our suffering is due, I believe, to a dysfunctional mind, lack of discipline, a lot of the, people who are kind of blaming their circumstances and their issues in life on others as opposed to taking responsibility for themselves. And I think that relates to hair restoration, hair transplant surgery, those who are maybe not doing well on the products or services that they're choosing as opposed to really doing their due diligence, making the right decisions, going to the doctors they need to go to in order to, at least give themselves a fighting chance.
Right.
To deal with their hair loss. There are patients out there that it's unfortunate that they haven't taken the time to do their research and then end up becoming victims of this industry. And part of that is just relying on the information that's just kind of being spoon-fed to them through social media or through physicians' websites or YouTube channels and shit like that.
That's interesting.
It is interesting.
I think you just sparked a thought that I've actually been having fairly recently about the idea of, when patients are perusing the interwebs trying to find out what they need to know, what they want to know, what they need to know about surgical decisions, how can they trust the information they're getting from a clinic website that's trying to get their business? I find that to be one of the biggest challenges for patients today, because there are so many clinics out there all saying that they're the pioneers, or
That's a great
they've
word,
invented
man.
this tool,
Yeah.
or they've invented that tool, or they've been doing it for X number of decades, so they're automatically the best. And a lot of this stuff sounds compelling. It sounds impressive to patients.
Dude, I saw something
But
that was
how
sent
do
to
they
me.
know- How do they know what matters? How do they know if it's actually legitimate?
I saw something that was sent to me that actually had on it an overlay with this guy's picture. It said "God of Hair." You made privy to that?
No,
I was like,
I haven't seen this.
I was like,
I
all
haven't seen
right,
this.
what's next? But yeah, it's super dangerous, and the same. Listen, it goes for any form of medicine at this point, but especially in the cosmetic surgery realm.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to go to someone's website. I think it's important that physicians have a strong web presence, a strong website. But unless there's some third party credentialing, credibility, and potentially, and what we're trying to get done, consistent information, it's all meaningless. It's meaningless for the consumer. The consumer has no idea. I was speaking to a consumer earlier today who actually told me that if he was aware of the reality of this industry, no matter what he learned from us on this show, he probably never would have gone through having any type of surgery. And I was like, I mean, that's a profound statement, because he's come away with, a decent looking head of hair now, nice, age appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that. So I was like, yeah, I guess it is that fucked up. I get it.
Yeah.
Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. I'm trying to figure out why I started that. Oh, I know why also. So, yeah, listen, that's what happens when you get old, man. You got a lot of shit going on before you just turn on the camera and try to do this program, which is actually part of the funnest part of my work week. I have to say, having time to spend with Joe and our fans and our listeners, fans, our people, our community. That's what you are, fans. That's just, This is our community. That's how I look at it. That's how I look at everything that I do. Mm-hmm. Oh, so I was going to say this. So come January, the IHRS has its 22nd anniversary.
Wow. 22
years, 2 decades and 2 years in existence. Not only did we start something where we were the first organization to actually have some sort of standards and create a minimal cases for anyone to apply and reject people. We started something that everyone in the industry was against, and we've thrived for 22 years. I think about that. It's astonishing. No matter who has tried to interfere with this reality that not all physicians are created equal, that there has to be some sort of a starting point for patients to do their due diligence because there's so many really effed up surgeons out there. And I'm talking about from big players to small players to like totally insane people to moderately insane people trying to stop this from happening. So I'm on the phone yesterday with a state medical board who had contacted me about a certain situation. And just like what we do in what we're doing in Dubai, as you know, in order to practice in Dubai, a physician has to be a member of a couple of organizations. And one way of them being able to practice is by getting a letter as an accepted member from the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. Well, this really piqued my interest. So this particular state medical board is interested in kind of having me as a consultant now, which is hilarious, but I think needed in this field.
Yeah.
For me to take a look at all the complaints coming in through our organization. Like, I didn't think of this. This is what's funny. As I'm talking to this person, this is him brainstorming with me. And I'm like, absolutely. Absolutely. You need a third party. You guys aren't really involved in the hair world to really understand it. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So it looks like once this happens, we can go state to state and maybe have really make a significant dent in what's happening in the field. And what's funny is normally this shit is my idea.
Astounding.
Normally I come up with these ideas.
Yeah.
You would never think this would come from a physician, in my view. No offense, docs. But the fact that this came from a physician, I was just like, wow, this guy's actually pretty bright for being on a state medical board.
And from a physician that's actually on a state medical board to come up with this idea
but that's usually not
the out for third party. I like that.
But that's usually not the
amazing.
Game. That's not the way things work. Usually it's kind of like
of course not.
It's kind of like a thin blue line is a thin white line.
That is, now that that's sunk in, that is an astounding thought process that this doctor went through. That is an astounding potential game changer. Wow.
Well, the beauty of it is, for me, it's like, what is it? A couple of phone calls. I get to check over some paperwork and tell them, advise them in what direction they should go in. It's no work for me.
Yeah.
That's fun for me.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, so it did spawn. Now it spawned. I knew what was happening in Dubai, and obviously we think that's great. And I knew there was some sanctioning happening in your part of the world, up north, where we were cited, the IHRS, and then the medical college. They did contact us, and after the fact though. But so we may be getting involved in Canada as well. But it's fascinating. Like, the physicians themselves couldn't get their shit together enough where these people actually have to come to me. I'm a college dropout. I somehow started this whole thing 26 years ago. And they're just like, you know what? Not only have you paid your dues, I guess I have time on tissue credit, even though I'm not a doctor. I guess people get degrees that way, right? Honorary degrees and shit like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe I'll get one of those.
Or for greasing the rails in a particular industry. Absolutely.
I just have to laugh about the whole situation, but I also do appreciate the fact that there are smart people out there who are willing to say, you know what, we don't know about this stuff. We have nobody who's part of this that really understands this field. We could use your help. I'm like, yeah, all right, I'll do it. All right, guys, listen, the phone number is 888-659-3727. But can you believe it? 22 years, man, in January. And I was just thinking, that's why it's October 7th. I'm like, it's almost the new year. Before you know it.
22-year overnight success.
22-year overnight success. That's right, yeah. Let's get to the phones. 888-659-3727. And for anyone who's listening, any of the consumers out there, this is important for you. This is really important for you because maybe, just maybe, because we haven't been able to really get the physicians to move on this stuff. Just maybe everyone will be forced to. And everyone's going to have to take a closer look at their advertising. And will they be able to say they're a pioneer unless they could prove it? Maybe not. Will they be able to say they invented something unless they actually did? Maybe not.
I like that.
Maybe not. And actually, probably not. Probably not. Will they be able to lie about the history, the true history of any form of hair transplant surgery? No, not anymore. This will probably take about a year to go across the country, but maybe more. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to tell you something. Talk about the wheels of justice being slow. The wheels of medicine or medical authorities, that is slow as shit. So we'll take one state at a time. That's how I feel about it. Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
As we all know, The Bold Truth is a politically neutral show, but I do think, and one comment is something I do believe needs exploration. You know, the press always used to comment on former President Trump's, hair issues, but it seems that when it comes to President Biden's obvious hair issues, no one seems to comment. Very odd, very odd.
My name is
Joe from Staten Island.
My name is excuse me. My name is
Would you like me to reiterate it?
my name is
Have you heard it? Excuse me.
my name is
Joe from Staten Island.
Joe from Staten Island, always a pleasure.
Great to hear you, buddy.
How are you, buddy? Listen, I don't want to get into politics, but I will tell you something interesting. I did remix a post on Instagram by a physician who is assessing Donald Trump's hair, and I just thought it was interesting because we get so many questions about what he did, or if he did anything as far as any type of form of cosmetic surgery for his hair. And I just provided a list of commentary of what the possibilities were. And this guy was the guy that was talking. I have to tell you that was such a polarizing post for people. They kind of take him out of the human equation. Like, okay, this is a celebrity. Yes, he's the former president of the United States. Yes, there's a lot of, polarization when it comes to this guy in this country. And he did polarize the country. But let's just focus at what this physician is talking about and maybe answer some questions from people who want to know what happened to his hair. Why is his hair like that? What did he do? Did he get a transplant? If it's any other known person on the planet, I would not have gotten the commentary that I got it. But, from both sides. It was either, who the F cares? Why are you, platforming this guy? I'm not platforming the former president of the United States. I don't think he needs me to platform him. And then you have the guy.
I don't think it makes a difference.
Yeah, and then you have the pro Trump people coming on saying what a disgrace it was to remix that, or what a disgrace his doctor was to comment on the former president's hair. Listen, this is hair loss. Nobody's off limits, Joe. Like you just said at the beginning of the of your statement when you called into the broadcast. Why don't they talk about Biden's hair?
It's amazing. I find it, I believe that President Biden did have surgical intervention. I mean, you guys are experts in that. Am I correct? You can't comment on that.
Come on. Just take a look at his pictures from like the late 80s.
Right. He had obvious hair transplants.
Yeah.
But no one's, when I'm not saying politically I support the president, don't support the president. That's, I'm politically neutral. But I'm saying
I am
people
too.
always comment on Donald Trump's tab. When it comes to President Biden, it seems to be off limits. Am I correct in that?
Look, you know what? There's a tremendous hatred out there for Donald Trump. And,
Yes,
honestly, politics aside, he's not the most likable personality in the world. Let's face it. He's a pretty polarizing character. Let's face it. That's just the way that it is. But there is a double standard. And it is interesting that we're just talking about hair. This is what we do. There's no politics involved. We're talking about hair. What happened to his hair?
Right.
What's he doing with his hair?
Right.
Whether it's a celebrity, just a well-known figure in society. That's what we do. And what's funny about this post, and it got a lot of traction. It was a simple remix of a doctor making an assessment. This doctor's kind of questionable, I have to say, as far as like his knowledge of the hair world. But he is a board certified plastic surgeon. Got himself one of these hair transplant devices. He actually got one of the better devices. But I still don't think he knows as much about hair and surgical hair restoration and what may or may not have been performed on a particular individual than, say, some other experts. But I could be wrong about that.
I mean, when I look at President Biden, he seems to have, it seems to look okay. He seems to have a frontal hairline. Am I correct on that? Could
Look,
you comment on that?
He not only grew into his hair transplant. I think there's a good chance, I don't know for sure, that he had some refinement done.
Oh, it's guaranteed he did.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed.
Recently, Joe?
I'd say in the past 10, 15 years he has, because much earlier on, like in the early 2000s and prior, it was very obvious. It was quite pluggy, and then something, I wasn't following him, or he wasn't in the public eye nearly as much as he is now, obviously, 15 years ago, but sometime around the mid 2000s, I believe he did have another procedure. I don't have links, I don't have images to prove it, but you just look at the difference from his earlier days before he became vice president, and then you look at him now. It's actually there's a volume comment. It's actually slightly lower in the hairline, and it's much more refined. It's a lot less noticeable as a hair transplant than it has ever been, as far as I'm concerned.
Right, I've noticed that too. You look at him from a frontal view, he does have the appearance of having hair, right? We look at a frontal view, he does have the appearance of having some hair. But obviously in the back, when they do different shots of him, he's like a Norwood 7.
Well, he's beyond the Norwood 7. He's Norwood 7 with significant retrograde alopecia. And, the graphs, some of the graphs that were probably moved have miniaturized over time. And I think he's actually a prime example of what could happen to a hair transplant if things aren't really planned out well. I don't think that retrograde started so late in life. From what I remember, it kind of started earlier in life, probably around maybe my age, but that's just the way that it is. A lot of physicians and a lot of consumers don't really take that into consideration. Now,
right.
So what's your definition of retrograde alopecia? I'm not familiar with that term. Could you please define it, if you don't mind?
Sure, Joseph. Absolutely. Well, retrograde alopecia could present itself in a couple of ways. And some people, it actually is kind of like almost like a reverse hair loss around the ears going up, and in the nape. Sometimes it's just in the nape, and it doesn't affect that region around your ears and on the sides of your scalp. So I think his is primarily in the back, and you'll just notice like a slow creeping and less density of the nape hairline. and it'll kind of, get a little higher towards the middle and maybe end towards the middle of his ears in the back, as opposed to underneath, like a hard line underneath the nape, which most of us are born with. So, you have a lot of guys who are young, they get a hair transplant, and there are people who have used like nape hair, or they really, especially now with FUE, they go really low outside of, the sweet spot of the donor area. And in most patients, that hair will miniaturize in time unless they do really well on medication. Like Joe's a great responder to medication. He probably has some retrograde just naturally, but,
I do.
Yeah, but his grafts look solid, and they probably will be that way for the next 10, 20 years. So it's because so much of it was done by strip.
Yeah, the hair in my nape is actually, I can't grow it very long. In fact, the hair that's below the occipital, below the scar in my occipital region, that hair doesn't grow very long. I can grow it for 6 months, and it'll look scraggly. But the hair that's been transplanted, that grows like a weed, and it looks super strong, even when it's, I can grow it down to to where it hangs in front of my mouth, like, several inches, not just my nose, but literally down to my chin, and it just keeps growing. But the back, not so much.
Yeah. Well, I did notice, and I think I told you over the last few years, I've noticed that there was a diminished volume at the bottom nape area. There is some retrograde. It's relatively minor. It's coverable, and I still have a pretty good, hairline back there. Relatively solid, but it's a little see-through when my hair moves from my collar, or it doesn't grow into like a thick area anymore like it used to, where just 5 years ago it was fuller.
Yeah.
So if I would have had a hair transplant, especially an FUE transplant, earlier on, it's very possible, even on finasteride, that if hair was moved from that area, it'd be gone by now. And that is what most people don't fully grasp. Listen, I was a huge proponent for FUE, and I hate to repeat this because I don't want to sound like some other guy out there that's always trying to prove himself. But the truth is, it was introduced to me. I introduced it to the rest of the world through a few doctors who were willing to give it a shot. But it was never my intention for this to become the primary procedure in this field as it is today. I always believed it to be either an adjunct procedure or a procedure that should be reserved for, patients who might not, and you never know what, you don't have a crystal ball, but might not progress to a significantly high Norwood status. But anyone who starts losing their hair in their 20s or even 30s, who goes for full frontal, so to speak, FUE, where their entire scalp is being diminished of donor hair, even if it looks good for a few years, that hair is not going to last. That's just the way that it is. And no one seems to get that. And when I think about some of the sociopaths who really, they wanted to ignore that because all they wanted to do was corner the market with this so-called scarless surgery. What a tremendous disservice they have done, especially to the patients of today. These young patients will never have the opportunity to get the most out of their hair transplant like guys like Joe did. Or people say, I would say from 2003 to 2010, it was a different world. We were essentially at a logical endpoint, in my view, at least as far as surgery is concerned and the results that we were able to see. People who were able to do a hybrid of FUT, I'm spitting on my mic, and FUE. And the guys who were stripped out had a new option to potentially look normal through FUE. I mean, it was such a great time in the history of this field. That was destroyed by a handful of people who wanted to put a chokehold on this new technique and make it the primary technique in this field. To me, that's nothing to be proud of. Rant over.
That's very interesting. Obviously, President Biden's hair situation did not affect him. I mean, He's obviously a very successful person. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
He's the president.
I think someone needs to address Hampton Hudson in the chat because he's been sold a bill of goods if he believes that.
What's that?
Can we have one more quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. After this, we'll address that. Go ahead.
One more final comment. You made a very interesting point, Spencer, when you said how fast time goes on. I'm retired from NYPD 22 years now. Like your anniversary of the IAHRS. It's
can't believe
amazing. I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. The years go by so fast. It's incredible.
It really is,
elaborate
Joe.
on that, please?
And that's why I'm glad that you're doing so much better and you're able to kind of appreciate life for what it is.
I do. I'm a lot better. You see, I'm a lot better than I see things differently than I first started doing the show. I see through a different lens now than I did before.
I know.
That's fantastic.
And that's what
Sounds
happens
so good, too.
when people get sober, first of all. That's huge.
It's what?
It's one of the things that happens when people get sober, first of all, is they start to see life through a different lens. You know, when you're drinking or taking drugs or whatever, I mean, it's like a kaleidoscope of insanity.
In my case, go ahead, right?
What'd you say?
Combination of both in my case.
Yeah, but I mean, that's pretty. Listen, Joe, what you went through and what you were ingesting, it's not atypical. It's a pretty typical cocktail here in the U.S. and basically almost everywhere in the world now. So
it have its moments. I got to say that it have its moments.
Oh, listen, I had some great drinking moments, man. And I'm not, I mean,
let's not completely dismiss the fact that there are some benefits of that.
Yeah,
I mean, if done properly.
Listen, Joe, if I was unwilling to drink, there's no way you and I would have ever met. Just meeting you, I had to have a couple of drinks.
Well, me, I just 3 martinis before meeting you.
I know. Right. By the end of the night, we were both loaded.
Then you displayed your brass knuckles.
Look, listen, there's a crazy world, right?
No, I understand.
Yeah.
That was over 20 years ago, Spencer. Do you believe it? I can't believe it.
You took me out to a great meal at the old Morton's. It used to be on 45th Street, which actually used to be the Cattleman. I used to go to birthday parties there when I was a kid.
Oh, was the Cattleman? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I just remember, I mean, you were just like, and you were extremely generous, and I was just, and they served huge drinks there. Just like, what was I drinking then? Jack Daniels and Diet Coke, or just Jack Daniels? I forget.
I think I forgot, but honestly, I was adjusting martinis.
Oh, dude, by the time I met you, I was always like, I was like, this guy's already fucked up.
Of course.
You know?
Well, I watch you walking down with your head tilted a certain way that I knew that was you, with your wonderful pocket bag that you were carrying, whatever that was.
Well, that was my hair supplies and my weapons and, whatever else I may have needed.
Yes, your brass knuckles.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know you guys got to go, but it's just, I want to just say this again. It's like, it's so incredible the way time goes by so fast. It's like we're in the twilight zone. It's like insane. The year's over. It was just Christmas and Hanukkah, and now it's Christmas again and Hanukkah.
I know. And again, that's why you have to enjoy your life. You can't worry about bullshit. You can't be burdened. And that's why I'm so proud of you, Joe. People who are new to the show, people who are in the chat, they have no idea what Joe from Staten Island has been through, and also just the kind of the mental roller coaster. And, also the roller coaster with the show. And I'm so glad that you've decided to come back. You were missed. And you sound terrific, man.
I do appreciate, and I want to give you a belated to you and Joe, Shanat Tova.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
I know you were off for the last 2 weeks, so, Joe, I don't know your religious background. I'm not really sure of it, but I know Spencer's religious background.
Well, and a lot of people know my religious background, and this has been some holiday season for me, let me tell you.
Ooh.
Let me tell you. Anyway, Joe, listen.
Probably a first.
Love you, buddy. Thank you so much for.
All right. Best regards to Bull Jerry. And by the way, happy Columbus Day to you guys.
Happy Columbus Day.
The millions of hair loss sufferers out there.
Are we allowed to say that now in this culture? Happy Columbus Day, or are we not?
I don't know.
Dude, we're old. We can do whatever.
You just did.
We're old. We can do whatever the fuck we want. That's the beauty of getting older, man.
That's right.
God bless you both, and God bless President Biden.
And God bless America.
Everybody.
Later, buddy.
God bless America.
So people, I just cut him off. So people are saying to raise your volume, Joe, but I can't. You are all the way up on my end.
I already did. So people in the chat room, let me know if the volume is appropriate on my end compared to this guy's. Right. Yeah, right there.
So maybe, and we're going to take your calls, guys. Hold on, we'll take your calls. But maybe you want to address Hampton Hudson's points. And listen, I just want to tell you, Hampton, I could understand it, especially from your point of view, and having a great result that you've had, and doing your research at a time when you've done your research, and going to the physician that you've gone to. I know the rhetoric. I know the reality of this situation. Now, if I wanted to just get involved, and it's not in my best interest to talk about the value of strip. No one's doing strip anymore, barely. I think there's maybe 10 guys. I don't know how many guys in the IHS that are still on a regular basis doing strip. Maybe 20. I don't know. I don't even know. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, they are all in on FUE. All in. Now, there are still a few significant holdouts who are just like, look, I'm going to tell you the truth. I know you want FUE, but this is going to be a more productive procedure for you, especially for the long run. I know it sucks. You don't want to get your scalp cut open. I know what you're reading on the internet, but this is the truth. That's not really being talked about much outside of this sphere. And I find that to be unfortunate for patients. And I'm not saying I'd want to have a scar or have my head cut open in the back of my head, but I got to tell you, if I ever need a hair transplant, and there's one guy out there that doesn't think I even have hair loss, which is kind of funny and interesting to me, and I take it as a compliment. I would go, obviously at my age, the length of hair that I have, and knowing that I would want to get every bit of that sweet spot, I would go with a strip for mine. That's not to say this is one size fits all. Everyone is different. Their physiology is different. Everything is different about each patient. So it's not one size fits all. You can't, it's like, what do they say, Joe? If you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yes.
That's not the reality of hair transplant surgery. Guys, hold on. We will take your calls in a second. 888-659-3727. In brief, maybe you could help Hampton out. Because I just want you to know, Hampton, this is not some sort of a narrative. Trust me.
I think it'd be better if I think it would be better if Hampton called because it's actually a much more nuanced subject than and deserves more than just a quick summary. Like I could say, well, like how do I summarize it into a short statement? With strip surgery, like all of it's subjective. There's so many factors that go into which procedure is best for which patient, but I guess the best way to say it is, given my own situation as a repair patient 21 years ago, is it fair to say that FUE would have been better for me, superior as the word was used for me, to get roughly 11,000 grafts to cover my almost Norwood 7 head, as opposed to the strip surgeries I went through? Narrow band of hair that was suitable around the back and sides. How could I have gotten as much hair as I've had through strip using FUE? That's always my fallback as far as, FUE is so much better. Is it? For some patients, sure.
In 2000, I think I was on WNEW then, and I had one of Ray Woods' patients came into the studio, and I said it on the air that I've never seen a hair transplant where someone looked completely untouched. I was so impressed by the process, even though at the time Ray was using slightly larger punches. Things were kind of scattered. If I really looked, I can see it. But in general, when I combed through this guy's hair, which he wanted me to do, that was the first patient anyone had ever seen of Ray Woods in person.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, we have to get this out to the masses. And I still believe in it. Of course I do. But I also believe in the truth, and I also believe in giving people a fighting chance. And when they're investing their time and their effort and their appearance into somebody, into having a procedure, I think people need to be honest with them. In Hampton's case, he's saying that there's no retrograde alopecia in his family. That's great. You may be fine for decades and decades, and I hope that you are. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of young guys who are already showing retrograde alopecia. And even if it's somehow managed by 5-alpha reductase inhibitors or whatever, doctors need more than one tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
That's it. Let's take a phone call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Eddie from Texas.
Eddie from Texas. What's happening,
Hey, Eddie.
man?
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. You guys helped me out quite a bit in the past.
Well, then I guess your time is up. What's going on, Eddie?
So I've mentioned this to you guys in the past, and it's regarding my taking finasteride. And I'm actually taking Propecia and 5 milligrams, just like Dr. Wong prescribed, 3 times a week.
So you're taking Proscar, you mean 5 milligrams 3 times a week?
Proscar. Yeah, Proscar, yeah. Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
So I'm my symptoms are getting worse, and I don't know what to do anymore. I think I just want to get off this medication.
Symptoms, you mean as side effects are getting worse?
Yeah.
What are they?
Side effects. Definitely reduced sexual libido. The volume of ejaculation is just not there at all anymore.
And how long have you been on it?
Almost a little over 5 years.
Okay. So did you notice side effects throughout the entire time you've been on it?
I noticed the decrease in libido like within a few months after taking it. And it's just been gradual. It's just like, it comes and goes. But like right now, I'm just feeling very uncomfortable. It's like this mild pain, like in the scrotum area, or like in between the center of my gut and between my scrotum, something like that. I can't quite describe it, but it's not comfortable. I'm getting really worried about it. Very anxious. I'm just kind of trying to figure out what to do here.
Have you been, just out of curiosity, have you been checked out by any physicians, a specialist of any kind? Have you had your abdomen checked out?
Yeah. So, I've gone to my general practitioner. I've gone to a urologist. I've seen endocrinologist, gotten different tests, and my DHT is way down. It's like really, really low. Testosterone is decent. I think anywhere from 300 to 400.
And how old are you?
Early 50s.
Okay. So, that's not terrible for sure. Naturally, you're naturally producing it still, so that's good.
Yeah, so I'm a little freaking out right now. I'm doing a lot of research, and I'm looking at the PFS, post-finasteride syndromes, and the percentage of people who actually have this, and I just wonder how many people are actually suffering from this drug that it's kind of being suppressed or not being disclosed.
Well, I can tell you that it's certainly not being suppressed. Now, as far as things being disclosed, you have to understand that the drug companies are only going to disclose whatever they have to. There was a
tobacco company. I'm thinking like the tobacco company. Sorry, like the tobacco company or any other pharmaceutical company. They're going to suppress whatever they can that might impact their sales or get lawsuits. So I'm just looking at all the different things that might be happening out there. It can't just be me. I know I've talked to some people also who have had side effects. I haven't touched base with them again, but let's just say, let's just indulge me. Let's say what I'm saying is accurate.
I'm not saying it's inaccurate. I'm saying if you're dealing with this, it sounds accurate to me.
Yeah, but I'm saying let's. I don't know what to do right now. My concern is that if I get off of it, is there going to be effluvium? Am I going to lose all the hair that I've been able to keep?
Here's the beauty of it: you're taking a relatively significant dosage You're taking 5 milligrams 3 days a week.
No. I'm cutting it up into 4s and only taking 3 of those a week. So 3.75.
So you take, okay, all right. Well, you could skip you could talk to your doctor about skipping one of your days and taking it twice a week and seeing if
Which doctor?
Dr. Wong or whatever doctor you're seeing. I can't give you this advice, but I would say I would speak to a physician. I'm not a doctor. And there is a lot of anecdotal evidence. It's not even evidence. That's an oxymoron. There's a lot of anecdotal reports and data. And there's a lot of data, at least amongst the hair loss and hair transplant community and the surgical community, that lowering the dosage could really mitigate any of these adverse side effects for a lot of people while maintaining the benefits that you've already seen.
So how much lower should I go? I mean, I don't know what Dr. Wong would say. I mean,
well, listen. I understand the panic, but I don't want you to panic. I want you to know that there's.
I'm past that because I'm feeling I'm just like there's a heavy discomfort.
I understand. I understand. I want you to listen just for a second, for your sake. It's not for our sake.
Yeah.
It's very possible that just by skipping one day of your dosing, you could eliminate the current physical adverse, the feeling that you currently have in your scrotum. And it's very possible that you're going to kind of feel like you're coming back to normal. And even if you have to lower it even more, it doesn't mean you have to get off of it completely. You can lessen any adverse events or side effects by lowering the dosage and still benefit from a relatively small amount of the drug in your system. So it's not all or nothing. You don't have to just necessarily stop it and be in fear that you're going to lose your hair. It's very possible to titrate until you're feeling better. I'm not saying it's 100%, but most people who titrate their dosage will end up being able to stay on the drug, not lose their hair, and eliminate their side effects. It's very common.
Lower the number of days I take them, or just each dosage, like still continue to take them 3 times a week, but lower the dosage, or just take them twice a week?
I would just say my advice would be, and I'm not giving you medical advice, if it were me, I would just skip a day. Start with doing it 2 days a week. Joe, what do you think?
Well, can you clarify the dosage you're taking 3 times a week?
Just like Dr. Wong prescribes, cut up a 5 milligram Proscar.
Okay.
And take it.
Right. So
and
so you're taking 1.25 roughly. Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So first off, I think that it's in your best interest to actually talk to Dr. Wong, because what you were saying so far, it sounds like you haven't talked to him about it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So talk to Dr. Wong, and then what he'll probably tell you is to back off to Mondays and Thursdays instead of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Just like Spencer was suggesting, reduce the frequency, not so much the dosage. Now, if it becomes, and I'm not a doctor, like this is just my opinion based on what I know Dr. Wong usually says and my own experience. I think that it's worth considering that after, say, 4 to 6 weeks, if you do change to Monday, Thursdays, if it's not any different, then you can look at maybe reducing the actual dosage for Mondays and Thursdays from 1.25 to maybe whatever an eighth of a pill would be, whatever that would wind up being, and try that. But ultimately, bringing the levels down, whether it be a dosage decrease or an intake frequency decrease or both, those, as Spencer said, can have positive effects over the course of several weeks where your body's readjusting. Now, the other option for you is to talk to Dr. Wong or a local doctor, if you know of one, about moving over to a topical formulation, which the only reason that they exist is to help reduce the chances of side effects and or the severity of side effects if you still get them. Now, I can say with authority, with experience, that topical formulations do not eliminate the possibility of side effects. That was the original claims by some companies. That is no longer true. But the instances of side effects are significantly reduced among people that have had side effects in the past with the oral medication and they switch to the topical. My suggestion on that is to not just quit cold turkey on the oral and switch over to topical if you do wind up taking topical. My suggestion would be to titrate down on the oral and titrate up on the topical simultaneously.
Got it. Okay.
Makes sense? Now, my question to you is, how old are you?
He's 50.
I'm 52.
52.
You're 52. Okay. Are you taking any other medications or?
No, actually,
anything?
I've actually altered my diet. I'm eating super clean. And I just started working out. So it was one of the devices that you gave me, but eating really well is important. And I noticed a change also when I did change my diet. I don't know what it is. I'm just eating cleaner, and I'm not taking any caffeine. I wonder if I think caffeine was helping me, and I'm not taking any caffeine. I noticed there's like a boost. But I can't quite point what's going on.
What's making you stay away from caffeine? I mean, caffeine can actually have a lot of benefits.
Actually, I've listened to quite a few doctors who are saying this. It may have some benefits, but also it has more side effects long term with sleep issues, and I mean, it's just a lot of details. But it's not like I can't drink caffeine at all. I can drink it on occasion if I want. But just like maybe tea, but coffee particularly. Most of the researchers what I understand is most people who've done research on coffee, very few of them actually drink coffee knowing what the side effects are. But that's on a side note. The thing is, I noticed that maybe when I did drink sometimes coffee, I'd feel like this, maybe like a testosterone boost or something. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if there's a correlation with changing my diet has increased the effects that I'm experiencing. Maybe I'm going through a transition. It's only been 3 weeks. Maybe my body's adjusting. I don't know, but it's like my body's gone through a shock, and those sugars, and highly processed food.
Explain this clean diet thing that you're doing, because sometimes it can affect you. Like for instance, if you've decided to go paleo and cut out carbs, that can greatly affect your mood. It can affect your cognitive abilities over the course of the next month. You could feel like you're in a daze. Like everything can change until your body adapts, which is how that works. So what are you doing exactly as far as your quote unquote clean diet?
Mostly fruits and vegetables, and then protein.
What kind of protein?
I can eat fish, beef, chicken.
Okay. You might want to consider adding, really concentrating on meat, red meat. And I know people are all fucked up over red meat, but do something that's pasture raised, grass fed, grass finished. Things like bison. You can order. There's some really great places you could order from.
So my regimen is 25% protein, 75% vegetables and fruits.
Okay.
And
it's probably there's a good chance why your testosterone is as average to low as it is.
And it's just been 3 weeks, but it could be something that triggered it. But I've lost like 10 pounds. This thing works amazing. It's not a diet; it's a lifestyle. And then that's just phase one.
Yep.
Because I cleansed myself from all the sugars and highly processed foods, and now I can reintroduce new foods. I can increase the amount and see what my body reacts to, or if there's any type of inflammation, and kind of gauge for myself what works. I'm not like vegan. I don't believe in veganism, but I believe in eating meats, lots of proteins, honey, raw milk, and dairy if possible. So I think once maybe I go to that next stage, maybe I'll notice a difference. But in the interim, I just don't feel comfortable, and sometimes I get freaked out by what I read, and these are legitimate recent studies, and
tell me what you consider to be a legitimate study. Where are they actually published originally, and who were?
So so do you know this guy named Paul Saladino?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so he recently, he's altered his views on certain things he used to do in the past, but he has a pretty holistic diet lifestyle. He made one video recently. It's called "Is Hair Loss Reversible?" And he talks about finasteride, and he brings up some strong points he has in his.
Paul is selling a hair loss product, right?
He has something. Yeah, it's called, I think, he has one product. Yeah. I haven't taken it.
So I had a nice conversation with Paul, one-on-one in person, about his concerns about post-finasteride syndrome. And I tried to guide him in the right direction as far as the actual research. And there's there's a certain bias when people come from a certain direction, and they and also if they're involved in industry. Let's put it that way. I like this guy, and I believe that for the most part, if you follow his basic tenets, you're going to be a much healthier person.
Yes.
But I can tell you this, from my brief conversation in person with him, he had very little knowledge when it came to this space. That's all I'm going to say. Good guy. I like him. We had a very nice conversation. He was very respectful, but he knew very little once he crossed into this wheelhouse, and I was actually surprised by that.
Yeah, I took that into consideration. I know he doesn't know. He's not probably immersed in this whole world of hair transplants and the medication.
I can tell you that based on the conversation, I was shocked at how little he knew about effective treatments.
How long ago was it?
6 months ago.
Okay, this is just a month ago. He just made a video.
Yeah, but that's cool. But I'm just saying 6 months ago, before he launched his product, he was extremely, he didn't have the knowledge base to make certain claims.
Yeah. I take it what he says with a grain of salt. I'm doing my own research. That's why
I don't mean to cut you off, but I do want to reiterate. Not only do I like the guy, I think that in general, if you follow, again, his recommendations, if you live the lifestyle that he's preaching, you're going to be a far healthier human being. Because I did.
Yeah. He and some other people, I kind of tweak it a little for me. But for the most part, most of these guys, these physicians, they all definitely agree on getting away from highly processed foods, the sugars, fast foods, all that stuff. Get away from it. If you just do that, your life will change.
100%. Everything will change. And that's why and guys, hold on, we'll take your calls in a second. That's why the debate between plant-based or, raw food or carnivore, some of it has to be taken off the table because in all these diet plans or these lifestyle changes, you're eliminating processed foods. That alone is going to improve your life.
Exactly.
100%.
But I will say, that I'm a firm believer in a significant amount of animal protein.
Yes.
Also, to combat any issues with your current drug therapy, to raise your testosterone levels, to help you with your sleep.
Which the working out will help.
Yeah.
Working out's going to help.
Yes.
And working out is absolutely going to help.
It's all helping. This is change. It's drastic. I took a 180-degree turn. It's that drastic. It's taking it very seriously.
Listen. Let me just say this, okay? A couple things I noticed. You said that you cut out all sugars, but then you were talking about your fruit intake, which means that you haven't cut out all your sugars.
No, like processed sugars, refined sugars, additional sugars.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yes.
But if you want to cut out sugars, you cut out fruits as well.
Correct.
It's actually recommended that if you're going to do a paleo style of diet or nutrition, that the fruits, quote unquote, should be berries like raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, things like that, and nothing like oranges, bananas, and that type of fruit because of the sugar content.
Paul
with
Saladino
berries,
would disagree.
Well, Paul can bite it.
Yeah.
And
I'm not doing paleo. I'm not doing.
No, that's fine. Okay, I'm just telling you about the sugar.
By the way, Paul,
So,
if you heard that, I happen to be a fan, so just, that's just Joe's personality.
we get it. We get it. Jesus Christ. So the thing is I firmly believe that if you've cut out carbs, that's part of the issue. Because I remember when I first cut out carbs 12 years ago or so, maybe 10 years ago, I felt like I was mentally challenged for a few weeks, and everything about my physiology was backward. Like it was just weird, and it was concerning. But because I've been told this will happen, I didn't lose my shit. I pushed through, and then I started to really see the beneficial changes in addition to working out. And with your working out, I think that in and of itself, you just started doing that has the potential to reverse or greatly improve some of these issues that you're going through because of how testosterone will increase with your workouts, particularly if you're going through strength training.
Yes.
Listen, man, we're gonna move on to another call, but I just want I heard the panic in your voice, and I wanted to somehow allay your fears. It is very unlikely, in my view, based on your history with the drug, also, that this is going to be some sort of a permanent issue. I wouldn't even just stop reading it. Stop reading. I could hear the panic in your voice, and I understand it. I totally do. It's not something that's irrational. It's something that is kind of, cumulative when you see all this stuff and you read all this stuff and you continue to research this stuff and you're actually feeling something physically. So I just want you to know that you can. There is a very good chance that if you lower your dosage, that you will start to feel better.
Yeah, and I'll call Dr. Wong too, just to.
You should call Dr. Wong. We can't give you medical advice.
And I don't want this to be like psychosomatic, or it's all just in my head, or I'm creating that. I get worried because I'm shooting blanks, and that's a bad sign. And then if I'm feeling this sensation, that's
and you could be exacerbating it with to some degree of a psychosomatic response, but it doesn't mean that it's all psychosomatic. It means like maybe something is going on. You're just freaked the fuck out about it, which is pretty normal. And now you have to somehow address it. And the best way to address stuff is to be measured about it.
Yeah.
All right?
Okay.
All right, brother.
Awesome.
Good luck.
Thanks
Hang in there. Let us know how you do. I'm telling you, you're going to be okay. So try to chill.
All right. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
888-659-3727. That's 888-659-3727. Look, it's like any other medication on the planet. That's just the way it is.
I can't help but think that part of it might be coming on because of age as well. Like he's getting older, 52 years old. And he hasn't been working out until now, until very recently. So I can't help but think that maybe there's some sort of contribution because of that as well. So I hope it works out for him. I really do. And I'm positive that working out is going to make some sort of change for him. Like he's already seeing a great benefit with his nutrition changes. Good for him. Working out will be the icing on the cake.
Guys, we're going to take your phone calls now. 888-659-3727. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Alex from San Diego.
Alex from San Diego. What's happening,
Alex.
man?
Hey, doing pretty well.
Good.
I'm starting to understand the benefits of FUT a lot more, and I understand why that's can be such a big advantage.
Well, tell us what your understanding is. I'm just curious.
Well, from my understanding, it sounds like when you get a strip, you have a lot more security in terms of these grafts staying around for a long time, like longevity of grafts, that sort of thing. And just it also increases the amount total that you could get. Would you say that too?
I would say that it does, for sure. In the long run, absolutely. And there's also other variables that a lot of doctors don't really discuss. You know, especially for the bigger cases, when you are extracting grafts relatively close together, even if you are trying to create, the perfect mosaic where it's really not seen initially through the hair, you are disrupting blood vessels in adjacent areas. And that disruption could actually be temporary or quasi-permanent. And if it's quasi-permanent or permanent, you will be starting a miniaturization process that no one talks about in the adjacent hairs that were left behind. So the first year, your donor could look great. But then 2 years down the road, this will never be blamed on the surgery, but they'll be like, oh, it looks like you have some retrograde alopecia. Well, that miniaturization may not have started if
Or DUPA.
or DUPA, if those blood vessels weren't affected by the initial surgery itself. No one talks about that. There's not a 100% FUE a proponent that will say that's a reality. You know who actually is an FUE proponent that will speak about this is Dr. Christian Basanga, who I think he would speak about that. I think I may have heard him speak about that at some point. I can't really remember because I'm getting older. I think he would agree with that, and a few others who really understand the reality of FUE and the limitations, but that's really their primary procedure. But most guys, the hardcore FUE guys, would never talk about that. That's a reality that no one wants to admit to.
It's funny, the hardcore FUE proponents will go so far as to say that you can safely, they're saying you can get far more grafts with FUE over FUT, but what they're not saying is you have to go way up into the upper and lower reaches of the donor zone, which used to be called the extended donor zone, because it's outside of the area where a traditional strip would be taken if it was taken in the ideal position of the old recognized donor zone. So what they won't talk about is how sometimes if you go into the fringe, if you go into the demarcation area, which a lot of these doctors do to harvest the grafts that they need to reach the numbers that they want to get to, those hairs may be just as susceptible to DHT as the hairs that have already fallen out. And so what they don't talk about is the long-term implications of having such large, wide-reaching extractions throughout the back and sides of the scalp. And it's interesting. Like I was saying with the comments earlier about how FUE is so superior.
Joe, I want to put the camera on you for a second. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead. I always talk about my own case. Even if I had just started my repair journey today in 2023 as opposed to 2002, would I be able to get the same number of grafts as I got with FUT? Well, the answer is obviously yes. If I was looking, I would find a doctor that would be able to take 11,000 or however many grafts I've had from my donor area. But the question is, what would it look like? What kind of difference would I feel in what fullness I have left now, as opposed to having had FUE? What would it look like as far as the fullness? Would I be able to have so many grafts and not have it feel like so much mass has been taken out from the back and sides of my head, as far as the weight and the fullness of the hair? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm actually wrapping up a video I'm making for one of the doctors I work with, where I'm talking about a lot of his cases as kind of an update for his membership, just to bring everyone up to speed on what he's doing. And the female cases that he sent to me, they're all strip cases. And I mention in in this video about how strip, I feel, and apparently this doctor agrees with me, is better for women in general because you're not taking out, each follicle on a 1-to-1 ratio throughout the donor area with strip like you are with FUE. And when you're reducing the mass or the weight of the hair, because you're taking those hairs out one by one, what does that mean for the woman, for the female patient, whose sole purpose in her follicular life is to have hair as full as possible? Like, there's not a shampoo commercial out there for women where they don't talk about how full your hair will be.
Well, if you go
and
on,
when you take out enough grafts via FUE, then you're compromising that possibility, or you're compromising that outcome.
I made an interesting post
fullness.
today. It was actually a remix, and it's a second remix on, women having hair transplants. And there's one. She seems like a very lovely woman from the UK. She's like a former model. She's some sort of an influencer. And she went to Turkey to a reasonably, well-respected clinic. It doesn't, not a part of what we do, but, and she ended up having about 5,000 grafts removed from the back and mostly the back of her scalp. This is a woman who already had significantly fine, slightly thinning hair. So the amount of volume loss from removing 5,000 grafts, and also the aesthetic recovery period for a woman, is profound. So I wrote something about that, and it got a lot of play, and a lot of women kind of like opened their eyes. They didn't understand this. So then I had an example today that I was able to share of a well-known fitness influencer who went to see Dr. Sean Benham here in California. He's in Santa Monica. Mm-hmm. And his approach was to perform FUT. This woman actually had a true form of traction alopecia. She had no discernible androgenetic alopecia. And most doctors, and I explained to her that, at least online, that she really lucked out, that she did her research. She found one of 6 members of the organization who knew what they were doing. And this guy assessed her, Dr. Benham, and said, you're a better candidate for strip surgery for these reasons. So she went in and had a strip. And if you look at the initial recovery, it's like night and day compared to what this other woman had to go through, having 5,000 follicular units removed via punch, compared to this person who had a strip removed, closed. Mm-hmm. The integrity of her scalp had maybe slightly shifted to some degree because of the peninsula of skin removed, but that will normally not be an issue. But it's like nothing was done because her hair is so thick in the back. She would have lost a minimum of about 30, given I think it wasn't that much of an area, but maybe if she had 3,000 grafts removed, it would be a palpable difference in her hair. She would feel it, and she would see it. And now she doesn't have to suffer through that. So the industry's really gone to a place where they're not fully informing patients, and it's all based on, and it's evolved or devolved based on patient perception and demand. And doctors have made medical decisions based on that demand in order to accommodate the patient, as opposed to them guiding the patient and actually practicing medicine and saying what's best given the reality of hair transplant surgery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just for women, right, with the back of the head being an important part of the hair aesthetic.
You're breaking up, dude.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense, 100%.
I have to remind everyone listening also that the only reason why FUE exists, the singular reason why it exists and why it grew so fast, is for one reason, and one reason only, and that's to avoid a strip scar. That's it. And it was pushed, more so by some of the early, very vocal pioneers, quote unquote, for men that wanted to have short haircuts.
Yeah.
That was it. Full stop. There's no other reason.
But now we're seeing what
originally
that's
invented by Ray
happened.
Woods to counteract the potential for wide donor scars, but it was never really discussed for women until FUE became so easy to get to because of all these device manufacturers and the clinics that they opened that were offering it. It's now turned into a lifestyle procedure. It's so easy. But what they don't tell you is you lose volume, you lose fullness. You got to shave the back of your head with most of these places that offer it. Whereas with a strip, for a woman, they're not going to be shaving their heads as a hairstyle. They're not going to be losing this volume that you'd be losing with an equal number of FUE grafts. It's a no-brainer as far as, especially for women that want a hair transplant. But they're being sold the idea that that they're not going to have a wide strip scar. No one would see it.
Go on my Instagram at Spencer Kobren and check out. You'll see the size of this woman's donor that was shaved, and then the amount of hair that was removed. It's disturbing to say the least, and it's needless. It's needless. Now, I will say there's certainly a place when, say, a woman is having her eyebrows done, and you know you don't want to have that surgical recovery. You're only removing, say, 200 grafts in total or 250 grafts in total. Then FUE certainly has a place. You're not going to be, really damaging the density. And even, and also the truth is most women don't make candidates for hair transplant surgery to begin with. So only in very specific cases, maybe less than 5%, it may be 2 to 5% of women with androgenetic alopecia really make strong candidates. And most of the women who have it done, maybe if they have alopecia, traction alopecia, or they want to have their eyebrows done, yes, that makes sense. Or if they've had defects from facelift surgery and stuff like that. The amount of women that contact us, and we had some woman from the UK, it was a really sad story, who actually was had Afrocentric hair. She's from the UK, young chick. Just was sold this vacation. Essentially, she just wanted to shore up her hairline a little bit. They then talked her into having her eyebrows done. It was done through all FUE. She had shock loss in the back. I don't know if it's permanent or not, but it looked like, the device that they may have used was either spinning too hot. Something was not great. And this woman is screwed up now. And that is a common story. But, caller, you've been very patient while we've tried to explain things. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, well, no, I think that's really important. And to be honest, with some of the bad FUE scars I see, it makes having a traditional strip scar look like, nothing. Because at least with that, it just kind of looks like, okay, you just had some sort of medical procedure done, whatever, but it doesn't look as unnatural in some cases as like a really, really bad FUE result, at least in my opinion.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I never forget when Ray Woods said this publicly, that the carnage that's going to be caused by people not learning how to do FUE properly is going to be far worse than any strip carnage that ever was ever seen before FUE took hold. And that is exactly what's happened. The guy had a crystal ball.
He really did.
Yeah.
So
that's.
And all these guys that are like pimping it out and going across the world and just saying that's the greatest thing since sliced bread, they don't realize that the people that are either watching them talk or looking at maybe taking a course here and there, these guys don't have the hands, or they don't have the technicians that have the hands, and they're just saying, "Oh, look, so and so is able to do this. We're going to do this. We know that we're going to get patients and leads," in quotes, and they're essentially inspiring people to fuck people up. So it's a really, it's funny. When I think about what we're doing, Joe and caller, when I think about what we're doing, And the fact that no one is out there really telling the truth about this industry, and this is the only source, sadly, it really is. I hate to say it. This is not to be self-promotional. And the fact that it's so difficult, at least online, to grow this source because everyone has this bias and this misunderstanding. They don't want to hear the truth. They just want to be told, that it's going to be okay and this is the way to do and we could fix you. And that's kind of the sad reality of what's going on online in this field. So, caller, I think you've picked up the right, you made a good assessment based on the information that you've gleaned from our resources and probably elsewhere. So I think you're a smart guy.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. And, I think a lot of young guys are in this kind of YouTube looks-maxing sphere, which I think can be really dangerous. And I've seen some of these influencer guys say, like, oh, if I was losing my hair, hey, you got to take care of it. I'd be on the first flight to Turkey.
Yeah.
They're saying stuff like that. And
yeah,
I consider myself fortunate. Yeah, and but it's weird, when I hear you guys say it, I'm like, okay, that's important. And then when I see that stuff myself, it's like doubly hits me. So
how old are you?
33.
Okay, so you're at the age where a lot of people are really still making really poor choices as far as this surgery is concerned. And you are, I'll say you're an anomaly, man, that you get it.
Interesting.
So good for you, man. And I appreciate the call.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, thanks a lot, guys.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
888-659-3727 is a toll-free number. That's 888-659-3727. We are toll-free. We have lines open now if you want to give us a call. And if you don't want to give us a call, then we just go home.
Got stuff to do.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was on a panel at FUE Europe in 2019. 19. And Dr. Paul Rose gets up on stage and he says to me, he addresses me directly on the panel. He says, well, Spencer, you're the one who really said that, FUE is the only way to go. And you really, you really promoted FUE at the beginning and said it was a better procedure. And I just grabbed my microphone like I was like I was being grilled by a senator. And I just, I just had to essentially hand him his ass on the platter and say, I told him, I said, listen, it's obvious that everything that you're saying right now, and I like this guy, is being regurgitated 100% from hearsay. Because if you ever saw my presence online, if you ever watched the broadcast, if you ever took the time to really get to know what my point of view is, you would say that my point of view is the exact opposite. I may have introduced FUE to the world. I may have introduced FUE to the online community. But I was the first to say that this is a 100% adjunct procedure. I said it was you and your colleagues who ran with this shit, trying to rename it so that you guys could have a chokehold on it. And that's what fucked up the industry. And I was obviously a lot more pleasant on the panel, and I didn't use any profanity. But I never forget that Italian chick that plastic surgeon is in the field, she just looked at me and she nodded because she knew. Mm-hmm. She was like, you just bitch slapped that guy. And I liked, I like Paul. That's the thing. But there's just so much misinformation and, just hearsay and all these rumors that are being passed around about me or you or the reality of the field. No one even most people in the field don't even know the true history and what our thoughts have been over the years. And they just make shit up as they go along. And that's the narrative that they created for themselves, for like behind the scenes stuff. And then after years when I'm invited to speak and to essentially do the radio show live from one of these conferences, they're surprised when the truth comes out. And again, we have all the receipts of the history. So I did decide after some things that are happening in the field that I think it's important that there's an official history written in a volume published by a real publisher about the field. So now it's a fucking pain in the ass. It's a lot of work, but I'm still connected to my publishers, and I know that I can get it published based on one book still being in print for 26 years, by the way. So it's really a no-brainer. And we'll get the right people involved to help with the book. And it will be a consumer guide, but it'll be kind of an official guide from the organization. I can't promise when that's going to happen. You know, trust me, if I do it, I'm not going to pull an Unger book. It's not going to take 8 years. But I think it needs to be done. I mean, I have to maybe I'll just take a week off, go down to I don't know, the Caribbean or something, and just sit down and bang it out. And I'll get some people as editors, in the industry who are actually some of the honest doctors.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll be it. It'll be written in stone. I think the truth needs to be told, and I think that a lot of consumers are going to want to hear this, and so they can understand what decisions, why they're thinking certain things, how to make better informed decisions, because the history has a lot to do with it. What's up?
Robert Hellner says, "Let's get it out, Spencer. Life and Times of Drunk Spencer." That's good.
That'd be fun. I actually had a guy who said that they should do some sort of a show based around the insanity of the hair world.
Oh my God.
Kind of like a Nip Tuck series, but just sort of hair.
Yeah. Nip Tuck. I used to watch that.
All right. If people only know. Anyway, I've been disappointed today as well by something. I'm not even going to talk about it. But anyway, why don't we just call it a night? We got no calls. I don't feel like hanging out anymore if there's no one going to call. We had a lot of good calls. We had a good showing tonight for the show. We have a lot of stuff going on in the chat. Hampton Hudson should give us a call. For sure.
I'd love it if he would. And Broaderbun 60, hey, Mr. Tillman, my wife thinks you resemble the bartender on the TV dating show Enamorandonos. It's a compliment.
That's my favorite show, dude. That's my jam.
Watch it every night.
I don't even know what he's talking about,
streaming.
But I think it's great.
Some sort of Spanish dating show.
All right, we'll give out the phone number one more time, 888-659-3727. If Hampton Hudson would like to call in to provide his point of view, I would love to hear it. And I think that, there is a certain confirmation.
He says, I'm legit at my daughter's softball game. I got headphones in. No worries, buddy.
Dude, no worries.
You can call in next time.
There's certainly a confirmation bias, but the truth is, and I'm going to be honest with you, if your family, if you don't have any retrograde alopecia in your family, and in general, if you're on medication, you should be fine. You probably spent $20,000 on your procedure, maybe 16 or 17 grand. I don't even know. Let's see. Do we know how many grafts you had done? I think it's kind of like an average price over there that they try to go for. So it's probably I would say it ranges between $15,000 and $20-something thousand, no matter how many grafts, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably what they try to book based on everything that I've known over the years.
He says 2,700 grafts and it was $16,000.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Well, I would say it's probably money well spent, and you're probably going to end up having a nice long-term result. So all we want is good things for you, Hampton. Trust me. That's the way that I feel about it. But but I do think that it's important that consumers know the possible downsides and the reality of everything. 888-659-3727.
Is that it?
Hold on for a second. I just got a text.
We heard.
Yeah.
Robert, congratulations on your most recent surgery. He is now at he says 2,000 grafts It cost him $14,000 with Dr. Umar. So it's what, $7? Why didn't you get a bigger discount? All you do is talk about your work with Dr. Umar, and he didn't give you a bigger discount? Shameful. Shameful. All the advertising you've done for him.
He's as big as advertiser.
Good luck with it. Hope it turns out great.
And you know what? I'm sure that it will.
Is he?
This is like his 10th procedure. I'm sure he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of guys that I don't work with, you don't work with. You know, I would say a lot, but I would say there's at least 10 that I'm aware of that seem to provide pretty consistent results on average.
Mm-hmm.
It actually may be less than 10, if I think about it. I mean, if I think about everybody in this field that I'm aware of, I can tell you that most of them suck. And a lot of the Europeans that go to all these meetings, no bueno, man.
Terrible.
No bueno. All the backslapping and all the stuff. The guys that bow down to certain Americans, if you take a look at some of their work, even on their sites, it's just like, how is that possible? How is it possible you're learning from supposedly the best and the even the basics, even the images suck? Go ahead.
Dude, the person that performed Kyle Christie's first hair transplant that we were talking about the other day on the main event.
Oh yeah, he was a member of FU Europe, right?
Pictures of her, yeah. She was a member of FUE Europe, and pictures of her with all the head honchos, because she learned from them in some of these workshops. Amongst the most terrible results currently being created in the Western Hemisphere.
That's why it's such a joke when the physicians say that they can create some sort of a either society or an organization of the best physicians in the world. It's impossible.
Yeah,
it's absolutely impossible. You know, there's one guy that actually tried to create his own message form, whatever it is. There was no cost to it. It was an abject failure. You know why? Because physicians don't want to be judged by other physicians, especially physicians who have like extreme egos and issues. It doesn't work.
And opinions.
But it doesn't work. It can't work.
No. It's impossible.
How do you think we got into the field? Do you think if that was possible, that my organization, that the IHRS that I founded it 22 years ago, do you think it'd be possible to exist for as long as it has? No fucking way. You know how many guys in the industry have tried to somehow dismantle whatever we've done? Get in line, people.
Have and are trying to dismantle.
Yeah, but get in line. Just that's how I feel about it. It's just like it's almost. Look, this is the way that I look at life. Hurt people hurt people. That's it. Jesus, who's texting me? Come on.
What's this one?
Oh, that's a good text. Hurt people hurt people. People who feel left out want to take their ball and run and run home with it. That's the nature of life in general. But there are people who have, some significant issues that are visible to a lot of people in the industry who, all of that shit is just self-inflicted wounds. I look at stuff like this and I'm just like, I wouldn't want to be burdened with that brain. Or any of that. It's like, what the hell is going on? How unhappy are people? That's how I feel about it.
Well, that's a question for the ages.
Yeah, we should go. But there's some interesting hillbilly Harry Carey going on. I got to tell you that. I think that's actually the I actually think that's both the legal and the psychological nomenclature for it. Hillbilly Harry Carey.
Read the chat, Joe. Dr. Umar paid for my plane ticket and 6 days in the hotel room. Good for you.
Well, that's great, man.
That's the least he should do. But yeah, no, that's good. That's good.
Did you have to fly coach? That's the question.
Yeah, that is the question.
I bet you Dr. Umar doesn't fly coach.
He does not fly coach, I'm sure.
He's all right. I got no problems with that dude. He's all right. And
still to this day, the only doctor that's presented to me live in person a leg hair hairline.
Oh, really?
In 2013. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 2013, San Francisco. He brought a patient to the ISHRS meeting there, and the patient I knew we knew each other through online interactions, and I got to see it, and it looked good. It looked good. Leg hair for the hairline. Only one I've ever seen in 20 years, and it looked good.
I had no problems with that guy. You know.
Oh, that's interesting.
What?
He likes you, Spencer, and Joe. He can't stand that nutty, I won't mention his name, other doctor. Really?
Rob, why don't you call in and tell us that story? We're willing. We're waiting for you. Our lines are open. But yeah, like I said, I got no problem with that guy. People are like, why don't you guys work together? I got no problem with him. He's always treated me with the utmost respect. He's a dignified guy. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hi, Spencer?
Yes.
Hi, this is Alex. I'm from Massachusetts.
Alex, what's happening, man? How are you?
Not too bad. My question is just, I always hear about, someone not being a good candidate for surgery. And what I'm wondering is, how does somebody know if they're like an ideal candidate for surgery and trying to make a decision?
Well, let's talk about your particular situation. Maybe we could help you out.
Okay.
So tell me your situation.
I'm 36. I would say I'm just at the beginning of starting to notice some hair loss just in the temple area.
You're already not a candidate. You just
all right.
If you're just starting to notice hair loss in the temporal area, you're not a candidate for surgery. So,
but I guess in the long term. Obviously not like tomorrow, but in 5, 10, 15 years, like.
Well, I mean that depends. If you're 36 now, in general, what the mantra is: the older you start, the less you're going to progress as far as your Norwood classification. But that is not always the case. You just don't know. I've known guys who started at 40, they were like full-blown 5s or 6s by the time they were 44. For some people, it's just rapid.
Okay.
Let me ask you this question. Have you seen a physician, and are you considering getting on any type of medication?
Yes, I actually, in the past year, I had a consultation with Dr. Bowden in Connecticut.
Okay, good dude.
Mm-hmm.
And
good man.
Yeah, he was great. I mentioned you guys. And I'm on a topical medication, but I've been on it for, I would say it's been about 6 to 7 months so far.
So what do you put you on? Topical finasteride with minoxidil or what?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you the exact percentage. I want to say it was 15% minoxidil, and I'm not sure about the finasteride. And there was a couple other things. It was like a
azelaic acid, perhaps.
I believe. Yeah, I believe so. I wish I don't have it in front of me.
It's okay. It's all right. So that's good. That's good news. So how are you doing on the meds?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I haven't noticed much of a difference in terms of it hasn't really made it worse. It hasn't really made it better. It's just.
So, do you think that things have slowed? Do you feel that the progression is kind of halted?
No, I'm still sort of. It's very slow loss in the areas that I'm concerned about, but I wouldn't say it's. I haven't noticed any significant difference from before I was on it and after.
As far as what? The slow loss, or I mean, you're seeing shedding when you're showering, when you're combing your hair. What exactly are you seeing? Are you seeing it starting to? So you're still seeing shedding.
Yeah, I would say the shedding is pretty much the same as it was, but it was very slow to begin with. So it's not like I'm. You would never think that I'm losing my hair. It's something I've sort of noticed, and it's taken at least 3 or 4 years since I first noticed it, to give you an idea of how kind of slow.
Okay, well that's a good sign. Now it's very possible that and I think it was good that and I'm glad that Scott is able to provide these topicals like a lot of other doctors now. But it's really possible that in your case, even though you are a slow progressor, that you may need something systemic. You may need to actually take oral medication for it to work for you. And that's going to be something that you and Dr. Bowden need to have a conversation about. But right now, he's probably stating that you're not a candidate for surgery. And the key is, and here's an important question. If you were able to just have the hair that you have today without worrying about it progressing, would you be satisfied with the way that you look, and would you just kind of move on with your life?
I would say no, because at least since I've started to notice the loss, it's been something that I've thought about consistently, and I've had trouble trying to act like it doesn't bother me, or it's not taking up like a majority of my time.
But is the majority of your time taken up by the prospect of going bald, or about the way you currently look?
I would say not that I would be bald, but just that the loss will progress, and it's going to deteriorate how I look.
But right now, as you're looking in the mirror right now, if we can just say, you know what, your hair loss is going to stop right now, and you look at yourself and style your hair, is it passable? Do you still feel okay?
It's passable, but I couldn't tell you that I would be completely content or satisfied with it. But I guess, yeah, I could. It's passable. I don't know how. I don't know. I'm
going to tell you just based on your answers, I could tell you that you're not a candidate for surgery based on just that it's such a slow progression. You just noticed it 4 years ago. Dr. Bowden, he makes money off of surgery. He probably told you you're not a candidate for surgery. And once the hair loss process starts, the hardest thing for people to do is kind of accept that, okay, there seems to be a possibility now where I can maybe stop this or slow it. But they usually can't accept the fact that it's unlikely they're going to grow much hair back. So when you're at the beginning stages, whether you're 18 or whether you said you're 36,
yes,
it's all the same feeling, no matter how old you are, once that progression starts. And you're so used to, or you still have in your mind's eye, what you looked like just a couple of years ago. So it's still fresh in your mind. But I promise you, when you're 46, if you have the hair that you have today, you will be ecstatic. So you have to kind of put that into perspective. You don't think
to
so?
Be. No, I mean, just based off of how I've reacted to this and how much it bothers me, I can't imagine, because I'm guessing that I'm not going to ever be like a Norwood 7, but I'm probably going to have the hairline that my father has. Which
But you keep talking about what you're going to have and what you're going to progress to. What happens if you got on the right medication and you didn't progress? And at 46 years old, you're exactly the same point that you are now at 36. Wouldn't that be great?
It would be better, yeah, than losing more hair.
Okay, so that's what you have to focus on. If you could focus on that and talk to Dr. Bowden about your current response to medication, ask him what he thinks about oral medication. And you guys sit down and discuss your options for at least holding the hair that you have. That's the best you can do. Now, if you really want to have your hairline reinforced one day, I would say that any ethical doctor would say you have to be stable for a certain amount of time, probably a couple of years. And it's unlikely, given the way you're explaining things, that a lot of doctors are going to want to work on you, because just the process of having surgery could fuck you up, especially when you're at that tipping point.
Okay.
I would love to give you an answer that would really be like, you know what? Yeah, look, take this drug, and then you can go in and have surgery, and you could be good as new. It's not going to happen. Once you start to lose your hair, and this is just a harsh reality that I got to tell all you kids. Once you start losing your hair, you're not a kid, I know, but it's never the same. It could be good.
Yeah.
It could be good. Like, apparently mine's so good that there's one doctor in Georgia who's posting publicly that I don't have any hair loss. So that's good. I appreciate that. But, I don't love the fact that I have a quasi comb over and I have to paint the back of my head and I have to wear hairspray. I didn't have to do that before I started to lose my hair. But I got to tell you, I feel damn grateful that at the age of 58, all the smoke and mirrors I use give me a semblance of a head of hair. Most guys who started as young as me do not have that option. So you start to kind of develop more gratitude as time goes on, and you're able to hold on to the hair that you have. I promise you, it will get better in that respect. But the key is you want to be able to stabilize your hair loss if possible.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I can get there one day. I don't know. I just it's the time of trying to style it and it's so hard because looking in the mirror so many times, you see the subtle differences and the subtle changes, and it's.
I wrote a book about it, and I've been on doing some form of this radio show for 26 years. I was the most fucked up out of everyone, I thought. But apparently not, because I've been doing this for so long. I thought when I was your age and younger, I thought I was the only one. There was no help out there. There was nobody talking about this. I was like, 30 years old or 29 years old, whatever. And I'm on the radio talking about how hair loss, which was relatively minimal, but it still changed my appearance, how it fucked me up. So I get where you are, man. I really do. But I promise you, it gets better, especially if you're able, as the years progress and you realize, wait a second, I'm kind of holding my ground. You become more grateful with every year. As your friends start to fall by the wayside and you're the only one left with hair, you'll realize that. So I think the first step is to do your best to try to stop the progression. And once that happens, you'll probably be a little less focused on that part. And you might be able to kind of maybe just spend, 20% of your day thinking about your hair. And that will get better as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely plan to continue the topical. It's just I'm wondering, I know usually I hear you give topical at least a year to see if there's any significant difference. But and I had
You
mentioned oral medication to Dr. Bowden. He had. I just told him I was slightly concerned. He just said, "Oh, we can start with a topical."
Yeah, but he'll tell you, like, if you sit him down and you put his back against the wall, he's an incredibly honest guy, one of the most ethical physicians in this field. He will tell you that you're probably going to benefit more from oral, but he understands why. Benefit from oral. That didn't come out right, but he understands why people are afraid to take it, so he offers topical, which it does work for some people.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know how true it is if like topical isn't as effective in the front as it can be in the back. Like, 'cause I've heard some people say that when they tried to use topical in the temple areas or the hairline, and even Dr. Bowden had said it's generally not going to be as effective as if you were using it like in the crown.
I'm going to let Joe speak while I have a sip of water, because Joe looks like he is totally depressed by this call.
No, I don't know if I should speak because the caller didn't greet me when he first called in. He just said, "Hi, Spencer." I didn't think he wanted to talk to me.
Well, isn't that the usual?
I apologize, Joe.
I'm just giving you a hard time. No worries. All right, so I'm going to do something that Spencer didn't do. I'm going to answer your question. What makes a good candidate?
First of all,
I'm going
to let you do that. That's going to leave a mark there. I just want to tell you. Go ahead.
A good surgical candidate has stabilized his loss through the use of medication, be it oral or topical or a combination of both, for at least a year. Has a very well-defined and healthy-looking donor region, as defined or as explained by multiple hair restoration specialists that are recognized as being ethical. All that's subjective, but that it is what it is. A very well-defined area of loss that has been stabilized, and most importantly, the patient has understood that surgery is not only the last resort, it's also not guaranteed, and it might not turn out the way that he or she hopes. That's a good candidate. Done.
Okay.
So the question you have to ask is, have you met all of those criteria? Especially the last one. Because surgery might not work out. So you're in a position now where I've been listening intently, and I can tell from the sound of your voice that you're very stressed out about the prospect of losing more hair, the prospect of having lost, or not the prospect, but the fact that you have lost hair. Have you considered the fact that if you have surgery, it might make things worse? And if you have, what are you going to do? What will you do if that happens?
Excellent question, Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what sometimes I go back and forth with. Sometimes I just think, well, what would the odds be if I did have surgery? What are the odds that something does go horribly wrong? And then I think, well, I already feel like my looks are compromised. So I'm like, well, if I got surgery and it didn't work out, like, it's, what difference does it make? Like, I already feel like...
Oh, no, he didn't.
No. The difference it makes is
life-shattering.
It's a difference of... It's the difference between, like, on the superficial level, it's a difference between looking like most guys walking around that have at least moderate hair loss, which is most guys your age, versus someone that tried to do something about it and failed miserably.
Like
that's
maybe
the difference.
Nick Cage or
and how
something
you
like
look.
that. Let him be happy, but it's just reality.
Or Joe Tronic circa 2001.
Yeah.
Before I got my first repair job. It is... You think it's bad experiencing some hair loss Wait until you have to hide the bad, ugly grafts that are sticking out looking like ant legs on growth hormone, or dealing with any sort of potential donor scarring or depletion or anything that can happen there, or both. It is night and day, my friend. Night and day. It may not feel like it to you now, and I understand what you just said, but it's not realistic. Having the appearance of having tried to do something about your hair loss and it failed is infinitely worse. And you could very well wind up being one of those people that says, I wish I never tried. I wish I just left well enough alone and moved on. Because I have heard that from so many people. I wish I had done that originally. I've said it countless times. If I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't even tried. I would have shaved my head. The only reason I didn't shave my head back in the early 90s is because I'd look like a white supremacist. I'd look like a skinhead. Now it's normal. But
and you actually have you have the right shaped face and head for it too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I implore you to double think, but rethink your approach on this. Rethink your position on this. Because even if the surgery doesn't fail per se, even if all the grafts grow, I'm going to refer to a statistic. 7 in 10 hair transplant patients are not happy with their results. That's a big deal.
That ranges from being dissatisfied all the way to being disfigured.
Yeah. And so the dissatisfied part includes people that may have had full growth, like all of it may have grown fine, and it may even look completely natural, but it's not enough. The density isn't there. Mm-hmm. And guess what? They're going back into surgery to thicken it up. And guess what happens then? There's an increased probability of a negative outcome due to poor growth or surgeon error or whatever, because every time you go in for another surgery, the odds of coming out with an actual mistake having occurred go up. It's just the law of averages.
And you're on that hamster. Once you get on that hamster wheel, you never get off of it, man, until you realize I better give up.
Yeah.
Or it could all go great.
Joe, is there a part of you that instead of going back and never even getting one procedure done, is there a part of you that ever thinks like, if I had gone back and went to a doctor that would have done it properly, or like, is there a part of you that feels that way? Like if I had just...
Are you talking to Joe?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. He said that he wishes that...
Well, back then there really wasn't anyone doing it properly to the point where it would pass today as far as naturalness goes.
What year was it?
Like the technology, 92. The technologies that didn't exist.
Maybe if you went down to San Antonio, Texas, you could have done it.
And there was, well, still, the technology wasn't really out there for the majority of clinics, except for one, Limmer's clinic, who introduced the use of microscopes. But even then, it wasn't on the same level as it was 10 years later after it was refined and improved and things. And I am such a stickler for natural. I wouldn't have been happy.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have been happy, especially now, knowing what I know. But I look, I can hear it in your voice. You specifically are not a candidate just because you're not in the headspace yet. You need to understand all the realities of these facts. And I think a little bit of self-acceptance is necessary for you to be able to move forward and feel good about any decision that you make. You need to embrace the fact that, I mean, from the sounds of it, you sound like you're like most men that have just a moderate amount of hair loss. Like you're used to having that stronger hairline into your mid-30s, which is great for you. Most men don't have a really strong hairline in their mid-30s. They usually have the maturing of their hairline in their mid-20s. to where they have the temporal recession, they have some thinning in the front, and their hairlines still look fine. Like, but for all intents and purposes, they're still considered to be strong hairlines.
Mm-hmm.
But to have that kind of hairline till your mid-30s, an extra 10 years, that means that you're more attached to it. So when it does start to finally go, it might hit you a bit harder. And I understand that. But it doesn't mean to everyone else around you that it looks terrible.
That's actually the truth. And it doesn't mean that everyone else around you is noticing the change in your appearance. You know, when it hit me, and I was very young, it receded pretty quickly, but really what was visible was the crown. So when you're 22, 23 years old and you have a thinning crown and the shape of your face is changing and you had this incredible hair and it's just becoming thinner, I noticed there was a difference in the way I felt women were reacting to me. Part of it could have been just me, but people would start to make comments about my hair. So that really, really affected me. So I completely, and I totally understand it, but you're in a position now, like you're almost 40 years old, you're 4 years away from 40. You actually have an opportunity of having a relatively full head of hair for a very long time. You have to I know it's difficult to be grateful, and it's difficult to say that to anybody when you're dealing with it because it's you, and it sucks, and this is your own personal fucked up situation that you're dealing with that is relatively new to you. So I totally understand that. I'm just trying to give you some perspective. I'm not saying you should be lucky, you should feel lucky. No one's lucky who's losing their hair. It's not lucky. You know?
That's the truth.
We didn't win the fucking lottery. No one wants to be a part of this fraternity.
Unless it's one of those weird people that just hates having hair. That doesn't want any hair, period.
Yeah.
Then they're lucky. But that's it.
But
I wish I had that same outlook. I hate having hair. I'm glad it's gone.
But as far as trying to put things into perspective for your own wellness, your own mental health, we're just trying to tell you that you're in a better position than you probably realize right now, and that you could be in an even better position if you make the right moves. Just don't make mistakes like these other people have. They rush into surgery and they're fucked. Surgery will always be there for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to give you the impression that I'm thinking about having surgery in the next year or two. It's just I'm just trying to kind of gauge if the medication doesn't make a whole lot of difference, and I'm still sort of constantly thinking about it, and it's.
If the meds don't make a difference, if they don't work for you in any capacity, then surgery is it's even more risky. But it's possible that you will make a good candidate eventually. It's possible that these drugs will eventually start to really work for you, and you're going to see a difference. And they'll give you a few more years, maybe 5 years until you really want surgery. And by then, things could be even better as far as what we have to offer in the industry. Whether biologics actually ever really come to the point where they're working for everybody and there's some sort of a standardization. Because right now no one knows what the F they're injecting into your head. A few people do. But I am currently working with a group of people. We're attempting to try to standardize the process. And I've known that this is PRP and certain exosomes and just the way certain things are being provided. It's like currently the biggest money grab in the industry. And very few practitioners are getting consistent results. That's the truth. But I do think that's going to change because we do know that these biologics work if they are measured properly and prepared properly. So you may be in a position where in 2 years or in a year, you can get great PRP. I mean, you can get it now, but, you might be able to get some good response from what the current treatments that are available until better treatments come down the pike. You may never need surgery, but either way, it's always going to be there. And I got to tell you, this call makes me, I haven't had a drink in months, by the way. And I feel like drinking now.
Well, I'm glad I could get you back on the wagon.
Yeah. No, listen, man. I just want to let you know that you're not alone, and we're here for you anytime you need to call us. I don't want you to feel like you can't call in again just to vent, to talk about your concerns. We're going to go. We started late. I don't know if Joe wants to take another call, but we're going to go and maybe give somebody else 5 minutes.
Okay.
All right,
well,
brother?
I appreciate everything you guys said, and I'm an avid listener, so thank you.
All right. Well, listen, you take care, and just,
Glad to help.
do your best to be positive about your current situation today. All right?
Yeah. I'm trying to be grateful. It's just...
But the future's not promised to us. You may not wake up tomorrow and have to worry about it.
Very true.
So that's all I got to say about that. Good luck, man. Take care.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I don't know, Joe, do you want to take another call fast or no?
Sure. Yeah, quick. Yeah,
All right.
quick one.
Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
It's Morty from Brooklyn.
Morty, we missed you so much.
Mr. Morty. Thank God you called in.
Too, man. My brothers.
How you doing?
My brothers
How
in
you doing?
baldness. I am...
Exactly.
Ooh.
Tell us, how are you? What's going on? What's happening in your life, man?
Well, okay, let's start from the beginning. First of all, I have to tell you, Spencer, Shana Tova, Happy New Year, Happy 5784.
Ditto.
God willing, this year should be
Shana
a
Tova.
wonderful year to you and your family, and to you, Joe. You may not be Jewish, but for the purposes of this call, you are Jewish, and not just for the purposes of this call. And you know what I'm talking about.
I have to tell you, Morty, this is one of the most interesting high holy days that I've ever actually been through.
You and me both.
I mean, Jesus.
You and me both. It's funny about, you talk about dissatisfied results and the dangers of hair transplant surgery. There are, I don't know if you're familiar with the famous phrase by Donald Rumsfeld, who talked about the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns.
Yes.
I think both of us, when I say both, I mean all three of us, can talk about what's been happening as an unknown unknown, or perhaps we can't, because, there was a certain person who believed himself to be a messiah, who I believe was a hair transplant surgeon, correct?
Yes. Yeah, but that's
yes.
But in the scheme of the entire picture of things, that was nothing. He just publicly actually lost his mind to the point where he put that on video. And because that seems so crazy, like it's universally crazy, everyone got that. Not everyone gets the kind of like the crazy crescendo, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. It happens a little at a time instead of all at once.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. Anyway, you mentioned that you were about to fall off the wagon, so I don't want to push you that little inch because we all know where that goes.
Well, here's the thing. I'm never on the wagon. I am a person who is just very disciplined with his alcohol consumption, and except one fucking time, I had no food. I had a guy in here from the industry, took him out to dinner down the block, and he's drinking whiskey. I'm drinking whiskey. He had to take me home.
Wow.
And after that, and I hope he just took me home. I don't remember anything else after that. But that
I remember
day,
you saying that you felt like you were walking funny the next day. I'm not sure why.
It was weird. I had like rug burns, and I don't even have a rug.
Goodness.
But
and I don't even have a rug.
Yeah, but that was actually a moment in my life when I was just like, not only do I not want to drink in a professional setting, I was just kind of like, I don't like this, and that was just one time. That's all I needed.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's because of our culture. We are trained to consume alcohol from very young. You know, every Friday you have the sip of wine. So for me anyway, having an occasional drink is just almost a commandment, if you will. But yeah, it's not something you want to play with, that's for sure. And the important thing about alcohol, in my opinion, is it should always be used for the purposes of celebration.
I agree with that.
Not for the purposes of intoxication, because it is not supposed to toxify you. It is supposed to sanctify you. That's why you drink it.
Well, let me tell you something. I hung out with some rabbis in my day, and they like their whiskey.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yes, they do. Had plenty of that during Sukkot last weekend.
Yeah, like during Sukkot, if you're in that sukkah, and I mean, I have sat down in these things as a young person, and all of a sudden, the amount of booze that these guys are pouring themselves is wild.
Yup. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it's always it's always to raise a glass to honor the host, or to
it's in reverence.
In reverence, to share a piece of knowledge, to spread some joy, those kinds of things. And
100%.
That really has an effect. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, there was a study done on rats concerning cocaine, and the study basically talks about how, like, you give a rat cocaine in the water and they'll drink themselves to death. But if you put a rat in a community,
in an open space community,
the rats won't do it. They may have an occasional, and so, and again, that's another side to it. And to me, the rule for me has always been, whenever consuming alcohol, is to always make sure that I'm not the only one doing it, not doing it by myself. And you always try to maintain some level of control and decorum, and be careful. I mean, we do things when we've had a few, like some of us may send text messages to one or another that maybe they didn't mean to, or maybe they shouldn't have. And, the next day you look at them and they're misspelled, and they say some things in them that, maybe they shouldn't have.
You end up with throat gonorrhea? What?
What? But the beautiful thing about that is that there's always tomorrow, and you can always roll things back. You can always, take a look at yourself and what you've done, and you can make an act of contrition. That's what the 10 days of awe are about for us Jewish people, is that we look at our actions and we do two things. One is we pray for our soul because of the sins we committed against God. But the other thing that we do, and we must do, and I owe you this, you guys, publicly, I'm going to make this public, is if you commit a sin against another person, God ain't going to forgive you for that. You have to make an act of contrition to apologize to the person that you've wronged, and you have to be sincere about it, and you have to do it, because otherwise you're damned. Okay, and as Jewish people, we don't believe in hell, but we believe in this place called Gehenna, which you burn in for a maximum of 1 year, but they say 1 year in Gehenna is the equivalent to 1,000. Excuse me, 1 moment in Gehenna is the equivalent of 1,000 years.
Well, we also believe in living hell. We believe in that we could suffer greatly as in our life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's one of the reasons why we take these days very importantly. But the important detail here to realize is that ultimately, if you wrong somebody, the only person who can forgive that wrong is that somebody.
Right.
And for that reason, I'm going to say to both you, Spencer, and you, Joe, that if you may, please forgive this humble soul for any wrongdoing that I've committed to you, knowingly or unknowingly, over the last 12 months. I ask for forgiveness, and I offer sincere apology. And if there's anything that I need to do to correct that wrong, I will do it. And I am pledging that to you right now.
Well, you have another year because you're already fucked up.
Wow.
Yes, it's true. That is true. That is true. I have to. That's absolutely true because it was in Sukkot. Yes, I do have a full year. But I'm gonna get ahead of it, and I'm gonna basically say I'm gonna offer my apologies today.
Okay. Well, you are absolutely forgiven for whatever it is that you did or didn't do.
Yeah, and it can be knowingly or unknowingly. And again, if it's unknowingly, let me know because I'll fucking fix it.
Well,
Joe?
in that case, you're forgiven.
Awesome.
Full stop. Like
Awesome.
I don't want you stressing out, man. You're forgiven. Like,
Look,
fully.
Look, Morty, the hillbillies don't understand this concept. That's just the way that it is, and that's why there was a hillbilly Harry Carey committed. And you like that one?
Oh my God! Oh, you're gonna give me a fucking heart attack.
And that's just the reality. You know, there's no concept of
hillbilly Harry Carey. Oh, that's a good one.
I think that's the professional nomenclature, like both legally and in the psychiatric world.
Oh, goodness gracious!
Look, there are people in this world who there's, whatever. Either they live off certain drama, or they've been so harmed. Hurt people in life.
This is true.
And I understand that concept. It's very real.
Mm-hmm.
So in this particular situation, we're talking about a couple of very hurt human beings. I don't know what happened in their past. I don't know who they've harmed in the past, but it's an interesting, projection and a, the whole victimhood thing it's a very unique psychological phenomenon, especially when you're dealing with a man. I'm saying it's probably more prevalent in women for many reasons. It's a more feminine type of response, and that could be because this particular person either didn't have a strong male role model, whatever it is. There's just some psychological damage there that we can't fix. So
yep,
that's just the reality. My goal is to just continue to do what we do, and to me, it's like whatever, good luck.
Yeah, well.
Now we're speaking. The listeners don't even know what the fuck we're talking about. It's probably they probably some of them do know,
and that is just as well.
Yeah.
I was being deliberately obtuse, but I needed to hear your voices, and I needed to hear my voice speaking to your voices, because I missed you guys. And that's really what this phone call is about.
Well, we appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate that. We missed you, Morty. You disappeared off the face of the earth.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of shit going on. I still do. I mean, I've got a mom who's, she's slowly making her way through a very difficult dotage. I'm just coming home from her, and I'm usually there on Fridays, and thank you for staying on a little bit later. Actually, give me the opportunity to call in, because I appreciate that. Because otherwise, I probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, I'm glad that you did.
And that's the main reason. The other reason is, and this is something for the listeners as well, is that once you address your concerns about hair loss, and you can address that any number of ways. You can shave your head. You can try the medical route. You can get psychiatric help. You can get married and have kids and worry about them instead of yourself. I mean, there's so many different ways to get out of the hair loss worry hole. However you choose to do it, I hope, I certainly haven't spent that much time and effort on it until obviously recently. And that's the way everybody should be. I love this show and I love calling it in, but I'm also happy when people who were heavily involved in this space end up, taking a back seat to it. I mean, like you talk about what's his name?
Joe.
No.
Joe from Staten Island?
No, well, Joe certainly. But he's back. I'm actually thinking of what's his name? Rolandis. Like Rolandis was very heavy into it, and now he's kind of backed off a little bit. And the reason for that's very simple: is that he's good. And I hope and I wish that everybody who's listening to this program at some point in their life, sooner rather than later, that they can get to that point where they're good.
And I agree with that 100%. The thing is,
I agree with that.
We have had like the, listeners for almost 30 years that call and say they're still listening, which is wild to me. And some of them just listen for entertainment value. They just kind of have like the familiarity of the broadcast, and they just want to tune in. They want to be a part of something. And a lot of these guys have managed their way through. this process, and I think the show helped them. Some of these guys really, helped them a lot. We have guys who ended up getting married and having children and not having surgery or doing well on finasteride, and they will every once in a while circle back to say how the broadcast has affected them.
Yep.
And
Well,
like the last caller, he, I got a lot of energy, so I may be around for a long time. But he may call it in 10 years, and we're still doing this thing. Joe will have his Jazzy, his motorized scooter. I'm just kidding. And this guy can come around and say, you know what, I'm glad that I listened to your advice. And that's what this broadcast is all about. No one can take that shit away with any nonsense that's being spewed out there.
Yeah. Yeah. One last thing I also want to mention, and this is important for those who are listening, when you're deciding to choose a doctor, the most important thing that you can do is you can learn as much as you possibly can about that doctor so that you have a trust in that doctor. And when I say learn about that doctor, I mean in every possible way that you can. Go ahead and, pull a background check on them if you can. Take a look at their, criminal history if you can. Take a look at not just review sites, but government sites to see if you can find out about those people. Because you're not just getting surgery, you're building a relationship with your doctor, which is going to last well past your surgery. And that's something you really need to think about. That's another reason why going to a clinic across the ocean is problematic. It's because that relationship is very difficult to maintain if it's a relationship with a doctor that's on the other side of the planet. So, if you're going to do something, make sure that you know who you're doing it with.
It's interesting. How'd you get so smart, Morty? Because when you called in the first time, you were a moron.
Well, thanks for the compliment, Spencer.
I'm just saying, the evolution of your. Listen, you've always had a great intellect, but the evolution of your knowledge base and just the breadth of information that you're able to provide people now with, and I guess it's all based on several years of experience, and you're a quick learner.
Indeed, and good influences.
Well, I got to tell you, Morty, that was
can take the form of Go ahead.
That manner of which you suggested patients investigate who their doctor is I will say surprising. I will say it's not wrong. And I would say that given the ease at which people can find information nowadays, I can't disagree with it. I can't disagree with that. Like I've never said to go that far. Like that never occurred to me. But I can't disagree with that. That's if someone has the wherewithal, if they have the internet chops to Google someone and to find like say you're considering a doctor that's in the U.S. It's pretty easy to get a hold of the medical board of that state,
disciplinary
and
actions,
start making inquiries. Yeah. Disciplinary actions, like a lot of these different state medical boards will have a section on their website where you can punch in the name of the doctor, and you'll have to give up like their city or the city they're in, things like that. And any disciplinary actions that have been taken in the past at least 10 years, maybe any, since they've had their license, will be on display. That's an interesting point. So, yeah.
And that is something that I wish I had known, to be honest. I think that it would have, well, I'm not going to talk about regret, but I am going to talk about information which is useful to callers. And that is definitely a useful piece of information. Because, like I said, you're not just having a surgery, you're building a relationship with a doctor.
Yeah. Well, look, I think it's important to not lose sight of the fact that you have had a fantastic journey with your road to recovery from hair loss. You have had I think probably the best education a patient could have, because you did slow down, you did step back, you did have a look at things for what they were. You took each step slowly. You gave each step a chance to the time to do what it was supposed to do, and then when you finally had surgery, it worked out very well for you.
You got to meet the god of hair,
and I can't disagree with that at all.
Yeah,
I can't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, and I think that's important for us to not forget, because that should never be in doubt. But what you said does have very it's a very important point for anyone in general looking for, not even just hair restoration. I think anyone that's going to be potentially cutting you, you should know as much as possible about that person.
Well, and also it also provides
advice.
It also provides, in some cases they're just listen, if you live life with true integrity, you've got nothing to hide. I've always said that. If you actually are a person of integrity, no matter what people say about you, no matter what they make up about you, you got nothing to hide. So you're doing your best in life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I personally believe in the right to privacy, but the other side of the coin is that if it's out there, it's fair game for you to go look for it.
100%.
Yeah.
Look, if someone is cutting me open, I'm going to know everything about them. I'm the type of guy that would go far enough to actually hire someone to make sure that happens, depending on the situation. But I mean, listen, in today's world, there's so much information about employees of companies and everything that you need to make. And listen, I want to make it clear: there are people that have had disciplinary actions based on some maybe unfortunate situations where they had little control over it, where there may have been a complaint. It ended up that whether it was right or wrong, they got a disciplinary action. You have to assess the importance of what that disciplinary action could mean to you.
Yep.
So if it's stuff like aiding and abetting the practice of management on a license, shit like that. I mean that kind of stuff is hardcore.
Yeah.
Drug use, shit like that. That's all questionable shit.
Yeah, and it's your head. You only got one of them. You know what I mean? And if you can do that investigation, and again, once you find out something, that doesn't necessarily mean you should discount the doctor.
I agree.
And what it does mean is you need to take it into account. You need to be aware of it. You need to go in with your eyes open.
Look, there are doctors in every field, and I know some doctors have gotten in trouble in the past over things that would be inconsequential for most people. Would have nothing to do with the person's integrity or their surgical skills or anything like that. And then there are concerns that are very real. And you have to decipher all of that. And like you said, you put that into your equation, and then you spit out your decision.
Yep.
But I think that's great, man. I'm glad you brought that to the table.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There's no 100% right answer either. There's only what's right for you.
This is a good conversation, Morty. You really brought a lot to the table this week.
Well, I figured I haven't called in enough time. I've been saving them up. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, but no, that's a very lucid insight that we don't even talk about much. I have brought it up in the past, but it was only kind of in passing. I mean, you really focused on the salient points. So good for you, man. Thank you for that.
All right, guys. I don't want to keep you anymore, Spencer. Stay away from the booze.
We'll see. All right, brother.
Have a good night.
Take care. Thanks for the call.
Take care. Take care, Morty.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Good night.
Goes on tight.
Goes on tight. All right, guys. Until next time, I just want to say thank you so much. You know what? Follow us on Instagram. It's Joe Tillman Official, at Joe Tillman Official. Right, Joe?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
and mine is at Spencer Kobren. Follow us, man. All of you guys in the room should be following us. Everyone tuning in should be following us. If you all follow us, that'll double my follower count. All 45 of you.
Double?
I'm just kidding. I'm trying to be self-deprecating. So that's at Spencer Kobren, at Joe Tillman Official. If you happen to be listening to this podcast, if we decide to put it out on audio form, which I really haven't been, but I probably should. You can tune in and watch the broadcast live by going to Joe Tillman's hair transplant channel on YouTube, which is which is youtube.com/hair transplant mentor. Ring the bell and do whatever you got to do to subscribe and ring the bell. And guys who are in the room right now, just like the effing show. Like the video. It's not hard. It's a little...
At least, if not for us, do it for the dog.
Do it for the dog. Look at that cute dog.
The dog dies if you don't hit the like button. I mean it.
And Robert Hellner, tell Dr. Umar to call in. Like I said, we're good, man. He's an all right guy. I've always had... The guy's always been... I've been talking about just like a gentleman, incredibly respectful, like any human being should be to another human being. You could sit down and you could talk to this dude.
I just want to hear his voice. He's like the Barry White of hair restoration.
He's got a great voice. He's got a great voice. We actually sanctioned his LA conference, I think it was 3 years ago, and I had a lot of fun. You know, it was before the pandemic. It was a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know what the hell went down this year with his conference, but on a personal level, I like the guy. And I love to have, whether they're members of the IHRS or not, love to have physicians call in to provide their viewpoints on the industry, on the reality of the industry, on what they're doing, and potentially any new findings that they have in clinic. Mm-hmm. I love him to call in. So he's always welcome. If he said he wanted to call in, tell him he's absolutely welcome to call in anytime. All right, guys, until next time, we're gonna say goodnight. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you all so much for listening. Take care.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you.